Craig, no whispering. Just kidding you.
I'm trying to think what I did with my cord from my computer.
I'm just teasing you.
I know.
That's what you tell the kids in class, right?
Right.
No whispering.
Maybe we can start in 6:07. It's late. We can start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have first is request of district payments. Ashley, is there anybody signed up? And next is informational items. And what's that first? Okay. What is our first informational item?
Mission, vision, and goals discussion.
Okay, mission, vision, and goals discussion. I think we discussed at our last meeting, we would maybe wait on that until we have our new superintendent and meet with the public. Are there any other?
Yeah, it just to remind, we had discussed with having an interim coming in this next year, and the other biggest factor is we are resetting the student information system. You know, the SIS K-12 is no longer going to be in business, and so all of our reporting data has to be realigned and rebuilt. And with the new Power School software, we have Unified is replacing Power BI work. So our learning division is, I mean, basically everything will have to be rebuilt in the learning division. Components and business and operations will remain the same because some of their work was done in spreadsheets. So that will still be existing, but the majority of our learning division dashboards are all changing and realigning. And so that being said, we would ask at least to give us a year to leave the mission and vision and goals in place. Obviously, because of the new superintendent coming in, as well as the complicating factor with the software program. The other thing, as just a thought as well, is, as you guys know, coming up in our policy discussion, we are approving, I think it's policy KC, which is the community discussion. At some point, the board is going to have to make some decisions in regard to that policy on kind of how we want to address the community going forward. And I think it's some great opportunities. We had a couple of town halls last year that I thought went really well. And I really think that could be an opportunity for the board to really interact with our community and have some really deep discussions about mission and vision and goals and where the community would like for us to head and have some direct dialogue back and forth. And so, anyway, that was just some of my thoughts, and I think that, you know, we obviously have to set goals around that policy. And so, that being said, I just think there's that opportunity. There we go. So anyway, that was kind of the discussion around mission, vision, and goals. So just wanted to.
I have a question. How long are you wanting to wait? The reason I'm asking is this, with a totally almost new board, I feel like they need to be part of that mission and vision. And you know, I hate to go a whole year before we do that.
Well, I mean, you still have the same mission and vision in place.
I know, but I mean, they may have a thought of, as a new board, basically, a different mission or vision.
Well, exactly, that's what I'm saying. You would build that together as a group with the community through next year. So it would be the board working together to evaluate, here's our current mission and vision, kind of like what we did before in 2019. The board would redo that with the community. You guys would set some directions. You would maybe pose some questions in the town hall meetings. The community can come up to the microphone. They can ask questions direct. So that's what I was saying. So
but you would want to wait a year?
Well, it takes some time to do that work.
I mean, in my opinion, I think, yeah, it takes some time to do it right. And if we're going to end up with a new superintendent, you know, some of these other things, like you could be doing it and then doing it again, and, you know, could be a lot of time. I think our biggest thing is that we have to look at it and we think it needs to be updated. There's probably the biggest thing that our board, this board currently would need to decide is do we really, do we think that we need to start that? Because it would, I mean, I could see it taking a year, especially if we get community input.
There was one thing that reading through it again, I've been reading through it and thinking about it on I think this is what this is part of it. I'd like to see us add district employees are highly valued resources. We don't talk about our employees. That should be a belief of our district, that we highly value them.
Yeah,
All staff,
absolutely.
But I just saw that wasn't really anything mentioned. It's more about, I mean, it should be about the students and the focus of their education. But as a belief, the teachers, all the staff, they need to be valued too, because they're helping to educate. They're the essential part of getting the stress. Anyway, that's why I had that, but I know,
Well, and I think as you guys build that, then you're also using that as you're interviewing your potential candidates for superintendent. You're using that guidance, just as Guy said, this board is doing that work and having those conversations, getting the input from the community, and then taking that to the interview process. So I mean, I think that is going to take some time. If you wanted to say and I don't know how you guys will set it up, I'd say you could have that meeting with the community, then you're going to come back, maybe put together a survey, some questionnaires, get broader feedback, come back, process that piece, analyze that. So I mean, it would take 2 or 3 meetings at least, I think, to put that together to then be useful as you then make that selection come November, December.
Carson facilitated that last time, didn't you, the mission, the meetings?
We did with you guys. We didn't, it was mentioned in Portrait of a Graduate, but the actual district mission was the admin team with you all.
Yes.
Yes.
So we can place some of those meetings on our calendar at one point. Any other comments?
Any questions on that?
Questions or comments? Great. Next, we have email filtering, delivery receipt, notification discussion, and possibly as agenda. I think it's important that, as we've said in many different policies, the board says in many different policies, that communication is encouraged. And I don't know if it's an administrative kind of thing that one person can tell someone else, because I read through the memorandum that the lawyer gave us at the beginning of our board orientation, that one person can't make a decision or speak for the board. So the whole board needs to vote on something or agree on something in order to establish a policy. But there was something that happened that shouldn't have happened. And I've been told it was taken care of, but I don't think that's set, like according to what I've been learning about the board from the lawyer, teaching me and stuff, it's supposed to be the group of us make a decision. And so one former employee's emails were being blocked, not being delivered to the district. And it makes me wonder, are there other emails that are being blocked, individual emails that are being blocked? And that's not conducive to building a good relationship with the public. I mean, that was published in an article, so people in the community already know about it. So it's kind of, I think it's inherent on us to, if we're gonna have integrity as a board and establish our reputation as a board who cares about our community and listens to our community, that we say, here's our policy. And if we need to, we'll make an motion, but I'd like to have a discussion from other people about it. I'm not sure if all the people on the board or not know, but I know it was published in the media thing, so it's out there. I'll make a motion later if we need to, but I'd like to hear what you guys think about that. If that's acceptable for one person to decide to block any counselor or teacher or principal or attendance person from getting an email, or a board member, I don't know if those emails are being blocked. And I wonder how many other people's emails are being blocked. Is there a way we can find that out? Any questions or comments? And is there a way we can find that out, how many emails are on the list that are being filtered?
We could perhaps put on a future agenda discussion about our email filtering system or something like that if the board wishes.
That's what this is, occurrence, discussion about email filtering. I'm not trying to.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead. Just, you can,
So is now a time to make a motion, or that's something?
go ahead, yes, whatever you'd like to do.
So,
Is it an action item if it's just under informational?
yeah, that's what I'm,
It can be, so if she would like to make a motion, that's fine.
But what's the current policy? I mean, like, it's hard to talk about it until we have the current policy in front of us.
so when I asked that, what is the policy or procedure, and I was told, oh, we just handled it and told them not to do that. But I don't know what the policy is right now, or if there needs to be a policy set by the board, so it's like official.
Well, if we're gonna talk about specific people and what they've done, we probably need to go to closed session to talk about that, but if we're talking about the policy
I'm
of it.
just talking about the policy of email addresses being filtered.
Okay, so would the board like to go to closed session now, or would we like to ask any questions about general policy, or?
Yes, that's the policy.
Sure. So there's not a, so as far as, do we have a policy that says we are going to block certain emails? No, but we have procedures which are substantive. And our procedure is that we have a email filtering system in place that our system administrator handles. As far as determining, if you want a comprehensive list of every email address that's blocked or email that comes through, you don't want to see that. If there's some, I mean, our spam filter catches more emails than come in. There are more in spam than come in. However, if you have a specific question, we can put that out. As far as procedure is, if there's somebody or an email that is requested, it would come down, someone would make it to me or give me a directive to do so, and then I would give that to Kyle Anderson, our system administrator. If Kyle gets one, he immediately runs it up to me and says, hey, I just received this. Is this possible? Is this the way it's supposed to be done? And if I am aware of it, then I'll get an answer. If not, I'll do some research on it and find out what the board desires or what the superintendent desires.
Do you know if there's any other people that have blocked that are not of nefarious intent?
So, and I saw this was on here, so I was thinking about this, and the only other one that comes to mind, and this is going back to when Dr. Bowman was a building principal. So this is back some time ago. I'll be careful because I won't say a student. It involved a former student sent an email to all that, and we had to block that. That's the only one I can ever recall that was specifically asked to be blocked.
Are there times where people are being harassed and you just make that call?
I would not make that. I mean, I wouldn't make that call.
So you bring that to?
I'd bring it to. We would make it as a decision. But I honestly, I mean, I racked my brain and I can't think of. That's not to say there hasn't. I mean, I've been doing this since 2007.
So it didn't happen last month, though, there was an individual, so
I didn't- well,
how did that happen?
I didn't say it didn't happen.
No,
That-
you
that
said
was-
you would bring it to us, so.
Yeah, so it was fraud, the board was aware, the president, vice president were aware. And their directives were given, and directives were followed. If we want to discuss that any further, I would recommend that we
Well,
just
just,
close.
yeah.
So
But as far as
can we
general
make a
policy, that's
for
how we
going
do it.
forward? So can we make a policy for going forward, that one or two people can't make a decision like that affects all of us? Because if someone's sending me an email and I'm not getting it, then it looks bad that I'm not answering it, it makes the board look bad, as if we don't care.
So I would like to address that. We absolutely can make a policy to address that. But I would say you have to keep in mind that everything that Dr. Chesley just mentioned would then have to be reviewed by the board under that policy, because there would be no way for us to determine through a filtering process, because I would not know if a filter, I mean, it is a truth that our filter could have blocked an individual from emailing somebody in our domain for some reason. Kyle does review those, what did he say, every 2 hours he has to approve those?
Yeah, so there's two different ways, or there's three different ways that the filter works. Passes through, it's known, accepted, it's a good email. The next is it's on a list of, hey, this is bad stuff, or it's known to be bad. And then there's the middle ground. And the middle ground is I'm not sure if this is good or bad, so we're gonna put it here in this quarantine, administrator quarantine. And then the administrator, which is Kyle Anderson, will go in every morning, and then he said about every hour, 2 hours, he's going in and releasing this. And that's made on a judgment call based upon him looking at
So that is an administrator decision. So if the board were to review that policy, you would need to give us clear guidelines so we would make sure that we were following those policies. But that would generally mean the board would have to review all of those emails to ensure, in fact, we were following the guidance that you had given us. So if we step out of the procedural process that we have followed, and we have done that, and once again, we're saying since 2007, there's potentially only 2 emails that had existed in this realm that we were discussing. To discuss that further, we would need to go into close. But I'm just saying, I think our system has worked extremely well. But absolutely, if the board wants to vote in a new policy, we obviously would follow that policy.
Well, we already have a procedure,
That's correct.
so that's what you want to see.
So our policy, our procedures worked well, except for the last time that it didn't work well. I guess it just wasn't followed or something, like, because we
No, I
made
think
it
they
Correct.
followed it, you're just not agreeing with it.
It sounds like it
Did
follows.
you know that that was happening? I didn't. So the board, did we take a vote as a board because it's not supposed to be, just
But that's
one or
not
two
in their
people?
policy, that's not in their procedures.
So maybe we need to make it that, that's what I'm suggesting.
Everything like that comes
Not everything, as he mentioned, there have only been maybe 2 intentionally blocked emails from district patrons. That means board approval or board
I think
acknowledgement.
there's a middle ground there, because in my job, if someone is sending me things that I don't want, I have a right to stop that. I'm not taking that to my elected officials. Now, if they wanted to review who I had blocked, that'd be something that we could discuss. But I don't think they could change the procedure of their day-to-day work.
I didn't mean to mention.
No, I just think they are, I mean, like, we might not agree with those and we can discuss those, but I don't think that changes their procedure.
It'd be one thing for you to block the person's email from coming to you, but if you blocked it from going to everybody in the county, you would need to get their approval, or at least let them know that that happened before you blocked it from going to any of them, without them even knowing. That's what I'm concerned about.
Is there a way to not block it to an elected official?
You would be receiving thousands of emails a day, because that's what our system gets bombarded with, and there is no way to,
And it's a global.
there is no way to determine one thing over another. Once you remove that process, you would receive them all, because there would be no way, or, let me restate that, the board would just have, let me restate, the board would have to give us clear guidance so we know what's being sent and what isn't being sent. If you provide us that, we will absolutely implement that.
I'm talking
We would
about,
just need that clear guidance.
I'm talking about emails that are specifically chosen to be blocked, that weren't previously blocked, like Mark said, that aren't from nefarious, not from spam, but from individuals who ought to be able to talk to their daughter's guidance counselor, who ought to be able to talk
Maybe
to
we should do
the
this in the closed session now,
I'm just
or
talking about
next
policy
month,
for
because
the
we're
future.
starting to delve into
Why don't you
individual
send us,
situations.
why don't you send us your procedure for review and we can discuss it next time?
Sure.
Because then, once we know what they're doing, before we even talk about how to change it, we gotta see what they're doing.
Okay.
What is our next information?
Oh, public access to board meetings and live stream viewing discussion.
Okay. I've had many people ask me, and I'm agreeing with this totally myself, the live streams that are being broadcast are awesome if you're available right then, but just like my class that I teach for our college here, if I live stream it, then when I get done live streaming, I hit a button and it saves it, so that people can view it afterwards. And I think that we should do that as a board to build back the reputation that we have in integrity, that people can see what's going on, so that when there are kids being acknowledged and recognized, their grandparents can watch it in some other town the next day, you know. there are a lot of advantages to saving those recordings, and it's no extra work at all. You just hit the button to save the recording.
I think one of my concerns is ADA compliance with that is a huge hurdle. What I've seen is a huge hurdle for us. We don't actually have ADA compliance while we're live streaming because it's readily available for everyone to be. If you have to make it ADA compliant as an archive for them to have hearing impaired or vision impaired, for us to be able to implement that into our live stream would be huge technical hurdle.
I'm not talking about saving them as minutes or anything like that.
No, for someone to pull up an archive and view it. They have to
You know,
be-
there are lots of public schools around this area who save their, who save their live streams.
There are procedures that have to be followed in order to archive that, and it does become the legal document along with minutes, and Mark is exactly correct, it has to be processed and closed captioned, so that it can be viewed and so on, so
I
those
checked
do
with the
have to
attorney,
be available.
I'm sorry. I checked with the Attorney General's office last year, and she said, no, you can just save those as a broadcast. They don't have to count as your official minutes. Your official minutes can still be the written minutes that we keep, and you can have the broadcast just available. Lots of public schools around here do that, and they have that available. If you wanted to have the captions on it, I guess you could push the edit button. There is another button that lets you put the captions on, but you don't have to do that even. You're just leaving that live stream up, saving it, leaving it up for people to be able to watch. It's not difficult. If we need some help, we could ask one of the area public schools who do it. Many area public schools who do that.
Mr. Vice President, if the board is interested in us going through that process, we were more than glad to go through that presentation again and have the conversation and let the board vote to see if we wanted to archive those videos. It obviously is an option, and we can do that. I believe that our attorney has provided some guidance to make sure that we are legal and do that appropriately. There is no requirement to do that. The minutes that we keep do meet the minimum, or do not the minimum, but do meet the legal requirement for the minutes. The live stream is an addition. If you archive it, I think we did share some of those guidelines that we would have to follow if that were to be the case. Once again, we can provide that information to the board in June if you would like, and then the board simply could vote and we could implement whatever the board would like for us to do at that time.
I'm here and see money. Can we hear some, in addition to the guidance from the attorney, can we hear maybe from a couple of different area districts that do that? Can we have one of them share it with us, either come visit or come just send an email or talk with one of or something, so we can hear what they do also? I mean, nothing against our attorney, but attorneys are paid to tell you, well, this is the worst case scenario. But there are lots of schools who do it, that the Attorney General's office even said they do it. So, I mean, could we have two perspectives presented next month?
Yes. I think that what you're trying to do is have a service to the community, and I like the idea of thinking through it. I don't necessarily want to hear from how other people are doing it, because that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. So I'd like to hear I want to hear what the concerns are, and then I want to know what trouble it would be to move forward doing it the right way. What would be the cost, what would be the time, if we are going to do it, I want to do it the right way. But I do think I see it as a service, and then I think you have to keep it for a year.
You do.
After that, so you'd have to have a whole retention schedule at that point. So I do think we should talk about it.
Talk about it again. I know we've discussed it in the past, and it's always good to revisit things if the board so wishes. So we can bring out some costs, and I don't know if that needs to be in June or August, or I mean, I don't know how long it would take to pull or much that information.
We already have some of that information from when we did that before, so we would probably be able to discuss that in June.
Well, I was here last time they discussed it, and I just want to make sure everybody understands. I'm not meaning to ask about keeping it as minutes, because last year when it was discussed, you guys talked about keeping it as minutes and all the legal rules that were involved in that. I'm just talking about saving the broadcast. Okay.
We can add it to the report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to salary discussion.
Oh, work session.
Oh, sorry, open session, open meeting discussion. Okay.
Hold on. Next amendment.
We may have. Okay, salary discussion.
I think that's the research that come across, just looking at where we're at, and trying to have a balance, and essentially, there were several teachers who reached out to me over the past week or so that were expressing some frustration with the proposal that was given to them, a $300 increase.
Plus a step.
Plus, and then a comparison to other school districts in the area that are comparable to Ozark, and showing where we're at. The red on the page is areas where we're falling behind, and in this small section of this district, 8 years into all the way up to 21 years, and how I think on the beginning side of the payroll, new teachers coming on, we do a very good job of paying a good rate to teachers coming on, but from what I get from the teachers that are calling and expressing their opinion to me is that we fall off somewhere along the way after we get past the tenure, where we're not keeping up.
That's right.
And there's teachers that are, after they've been here for 8 years, they're starting to get wandering eyes to, well, if I was at Springfield School District, I'd be making $6,000 or $8,000 more.
That's correct.
So we need to take that into consideration as we try to look at the balance between offering them pay raises and what that does in our budget. And we do have budget restrictions. Just an item for discussion.
Yeah, no, I think, and this is great, this is, I mean, what you're showing here is an area that we've discussed for a great number of years. That is a very difficult area to try to fix within the salary schedule. This is one that, this dates back even to Dr. Pace's days, trying to get this area fixed. We've been, at times, been able to make strides, but we also need to keep in mind with our master's program, we currently right now, I mean, depending on our numbers, but we're looking in the neighborhood of upwards of 70% of our staff have masters. So when you go to change that area of the salary schedule, that makes a big difference. Because of the number of staff that are within that area, so it is an expensive move. If you guys remember the last 2 years, we did change the steps, so when I'd have to go back and look at it exactly, but I think it was about year 10 down, we changed those steps dramatically. So your last 4 years, those are $1,000 steps as opposed to a first-year teacher only getting $650 per step. So we have tried to adjust some of those areas to exactly what you're talking about. So that clearly is an area that does need some work, some continued work. And so I agree, Mark, 100%. It is an area that is difficult to move, but I think it is one that we have been trying to make a priority. This year, we just did not, I did not feel like, and I think Dr. Wilson would agree, we did not feel like the money was there in the budget, but just to give the step, not make any step adjustments, and then just do the 300 to the base because of where we were budget-wise. I think we can come back and reevaluate as obviously the board wants to give directions and we go into this next budget year. But I mean, what you're pointing out there is absolutely one of the problems with our salary scale.
I think there's an issue with managing perception and communicating with teachers, because they, perception-wise, they view that the school is, and I know they come out in different buckets, but they view spending a really large amount of money on facilities versus money being diverted for salary. And they view that we spend a lot of money on the OIC versus do we need to spend all that money on that versus could they get a larger pay raise of $300?
Yeah, so the truth is, we could have spent $0 back here and it would have changed our salary scale to zero. As you said.
But the perception is.
I understand, I get that, and I mean, you know, we try to educate as often as we can, and it really would not have made any difference. Now, money that is being transferred from Fund 4, the 2 million transfer, that does have an impact. We do need to build Fund 4, that's how you're making repairs, fixing roofs, doing those things. That's the work that Dr. Chesick has to be able to do the facility repairs. Now, if you want to talk about that, those are dollars that you could shift back potentially. I know nobody likes to have the conversation, but the truth is, if you run the numbers, I had a teacher that emailed me and said, I could go to Springfield and make $7,000 more. And I said, if you are more veteran in years, you're going to need to make a decision because we're not going to be able to solve this problem in the next couple of years. It's just not going to happen. And I said, one, just as Guy pointed out at our last meeting, you can't cut your way to a better district, right? So you just can't go in and just start whacking everything either. That's not going to make us any good. Well, at the same time, if we want to give teachers a $7,000 raise, that would require $7 million to do that. That means we would have to go to our taxpayers and ask for a $1.20 tax increase. That's not going to happen either, right? So there's no way you can cut your way to it, and there's no way you can tax your way to it. What we need to do is try to help our community continue to be better and better. We need to make sure that we're as fiscally responsible as we can, and there probably does need to come back and be a conversation about, are we interested in raising taxes? Maybe we can get 40 cents. Maybe we could do something like that that would then give us some dollars that we could then apply towards salaries. And you can even go in when you go to vote. Nixa did it when they raised theirs to $4.59. They went in and said this amount of money is dedicated towards teacher salaries. It was tagged in the vote, and that money has to stay there legally because that's how that the vote is taken. So those are considerations that can be made. But like I said, you can't cut your way to it, and you can't tax raise yourself to it either. Those two, so there has to be a balance that is struck. But I will tell you, as you guys know, by looking at this, I mean, there's going to be some hard decisions that we're going to have to make going forward.
I don't think there are only two options either. I think sometimes it can be making a list of priorities of where to spend the money that we do have, where to concentrate that money in. Maybe veteran teacher salaries need to be moved up the list, along with
exactly what I'm saying.
maintenance needs to stay up there, just looking at which ones are the first priorities that are gonna help the most students,
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, thank you. Next we have teacher dates. Dr. Bowman.
My computer just died. Maybe I'm getting it back. What do we have going here? I just want to mention, we do have the MSBA Summer Summit, which is the June 16th and 17th, and I think we have a couple of our new board members that are attending potentially for their trainings. But anyway, that's at the Chateau at the resort down in Branson.
Yes, and as a delegate, I will not be attending, so you go to the delegate assembly.
Oh, and it's 3 o'clock Saturday, I think. Okay. You should be getting some information.
Yes, yeah. Did you get anything about the delegate? No, I'll double check. Not yet, I don't believe she.
Yeah.
And June 29th is our board meeting, regular. schedule.
Is this the place where we're gonna, I'm sorry, did you have more to say on that?
No, I was just saying June 29th was our regular board meeting.
We have a full board calendar list attached as well.
Is this where we're gonna talk about the quarterly town halls?
We may need some dates on
I think we should do that at the next one for the next school year, because it looks like that was this.
Can you speak up, please?
Oh, sorry. I said. Yeah, that's next school year. Wait until June to set that calendar for next school year, because the calendar we're looking at right now is the current year, ending on June 22nd for our next school year.
June 29th.
Yeah, it was, we made it, yes.
But I do think that we should have those, I mean, like, we need to have some dates together, we talked about doing it once a quarter.
Yes.
Once a quarter, and, making sure that we get that put out, when we put out the new school calendar, we should put out what the town halls are gonna be.
So I didn't know if we needed to do that now, so I'm ready to be published.
Well, I think we need to everybody needs to look at those and get some dates together to vote on it the next time, is what I would suggest.
We can put together some dates and have that prepared,
Because they're gonna have
Okay, great.
facilities, and then we have,
Yeah.
we're available on.
Thank you.
we will get that done for June.
Thank you. And June 13th is a Care to Learn fundraiser / Dr. Bauman retirement reception. So I sent a link to everyone to buy tickets for that and hopefully raise some great money for Care to Learn as well.
Yeah, we have an opportunity for matching funds.
And matching funds, yeah.
Great.
We are going to move on to consent agenda. Okay, I just need a motion.
I would like to remove the whole letter A from the consent agenda, give more part of education on possession minutes. Because I sent in the things I know it's too late. Those get changed already. From the April one also.
Oh, not from April, no, April's not on there, it's not listed.
Yeah. I haven't checked this other day, but I didn't see the name of it, it's on there, so I know you might have told me, I appreciate that, but it's, so.
Oh, it's on there.
But I believe, you don't mind me taking it, and I'll look at it, and take that one, but at least the April ones.
It's not on.
It's not on.
It's not, well, I thought you said it's gonna be both ones.
We didn't approve it last
Right,
month.
so I had asked about the change,
So do we need to approve that? Save that for June as well? Okay. We'll do that too.
which is not that one.
And so are we pulling out the May? Was there a motion or?
I guess not.
Okay, great.
I thought letter A just says approve of the consent minutes, so I thought that was both April and.
Oh, I see, okay. So we just need a motion now to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Which includes the May.
Yes, nothing taken off.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Patty
I'll second.
and second by Guy. All in favor of approval of consent agenda? All right, and it's unanimous. Thank you. We have approval of MSBA revised policies.
Yeah, so we have, the packet that needs to be approved, this is the final, read for these policies. As you know, we sit down with these and go through those when they come in. We also currently have, I think actually, didn't we get our new packet that's
Yes,
in the
but
process?
we haven't voted for or we haven't looked at it the second reading.
Right, the second reading will be in June. So that is coming up, and obviously, we also have the district staff that are reviewing those as well. So this one is up for the final read. It is going to be our recommendation that we approve all of the policies as presented, with the exception of, I would like to add some language, or at least we have discussed, Mr. President, the policy BDDH. That is the public wanting to add agenda items, that policy. And as it currently states, it says the individual would meet with the superintendent or designee And we had conversations about adding a language that would be and board president or designate. So it would be a district person as well as a board person. So we would ask that when the board approves that, you approve the addition of that language added to BDDH as well. So that really is the only change that we have. So if the board approves that, that would be great, and then we'll get that sent off to MSBA, and then they'll get that language added in. And the other thing is, that I just want to make mention to the board, which we brought up before, was policy KC, which is the community engagement. And when you look at policy KC, it talks about there are 4 items that are listed in this policy, and the board must select 3 of the 4 to address as goals. And so that is something that at some point the board is going to have to discuss and select in order for us to be in compliance with policy KC. Once again, we're not recommending any language change or anything like that. I just am bringing that to the board's attention, that that will be something that will need to be done and addressed. I think when you look at those goals, the things that you're talking about with the town hall meetings, the other things that we've done are addressing those goals. So I don't think it's going to be a tough reach by any means, but I do think the board needs to officially take a position that here are the 3 that we are selecting, and this is how we're going to engage our community. So just wanted to point that out. Other than that, pending any questions, we would ask that the board approve the policies as presented with the addition to policy BDDH, adding and board president or designee to that policy.
Any questions or comments regarding the
DDH.
BDDH? Thank you, about that changing the wording.
Actually, I think it's BDDH-1.
Yeah.
In addition to those 2 that you mentioned, I had 7 others that I thought needed to be a few things talked about on them. And I remember asking you about them. I said, how are you going to handle that? You said,
Discussion.
discuss.
Yeah, go ahead.
Each one, yes, if you want.
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at BDH 1. On the second page, under rules, number 2, the board may refuse to hear or delay a hearing an agenda item if, and the first one seems kind of counterintuitive to me. The first one says, if the board has heard an identical or substantially similar agenda item in the previous 3 calendar months. And I think that doesn't match with us trying to get the idea of community engagement, because what if things have changed since last month, but something's still an issue, or what if there are 5 people who want to say something about it, and one of them says, we're only gonna, if it's been previously heard, maybe that person didn't get out of it. I feel like that's doing the opposite of what we want to do with that first rule, that first bullet point under rule number 2. I think that's doing the opposite of encouraging engagement. I think that's striking it off. So I would say let's strike that first bullet point. These board policies, it says, one more grouping, and then, I'm sorry, I talked so much. The MSBA talks about how it's our board policy, and how we adopt them to fit Ozark, and Ozark is fighting, I think, Ozark School District is fighting the perception that we are closed off to community engagement. So I think we need to do everything we can to build back that reputation that we're transparent, that we're open to people being involved, that we're welcoming their comments, and I think that is one that does the opposite side of it.
Might I make a recommendation that we go ahead and vote on the policies that everybody is okay with?
Okay.
Because if you do make language changes, we want to make sure we have those clearly noted. So I would ask that you give the policies that you would like to pull off for discussion, and then let's vote on the others. And then we'll go one by one with the other 7. I think that's just going to help us make sure we're more clear, because I would hate for it to get convoluted, if that's okay.
All right, thank you.
So, you want me to just the names of the ones to pull off?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
KC, which mentioned KC-AF.
We can't pull our KC. We cannot, that has to go into effect July 1.
So we still have another board meeting at the end of June. or we can finish talking about it at this meeting, or if we need to have another meeting, we can. Policy is our most important thing.
But that's what I was gonna say.
Talk about it today.
Yeah, we're not, what I'm recommending is we're just pulling it out of the list, and we'll talk about KC individually. You may be able to come up with the language,
Still vote on it.
and still vote on it pending the language change.
So KC, and then it mentioned KC-AF1, and I couldn't find that anywhere. It said it's included in this packet, but I just couldn't find it, so I don't know, that's supposed to be a feedback. So KC, BDDH1, BDDB2, BDDB-2, my contrast, KC, BDDH1, Dr. Bauman was talking about him too, and BDDB-2, BDDF-1, DB, yeah, D as in David, B as in boy.
Oh, okay, I got you.
JFGA, JHDF, DJFA, and the last one is IF. I feel like setting policies are most important thing. I don't think it's not really
Absolutely.
Relook right
Would
now
you-
on those, thank you.
Read through that list again, because we're going to exclude those from the vote.
You want me to, once the list she just.
Yes, so we
read?
can
Okay.
verify that you have them correct.
So KC, BDDB2, BDDH1, BDDF1, DB, JFGA, JHDE, DJFA, and IF.
The third to last one was JHDF.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Oh, DF, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. There we go.
So since we pulled off the BDDH1, you would not need to make any of that. So the motion would be to approve all of the policies as presented with those that were just been read off, pulled off that list.
Yes. So I would just need a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mark.
No. There were like 25 of them. I seconded this one.
Second by Christina.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. And it was unanimous. Thank you. Discussion.
Just go to the top of the
One
list.
at a time? Okay, how about BDDH1? And so underneath rule 2, the first bullet point, I already talked about that. I don't know if you guys want to discuss it, if not, on to the next one, I have some.
So on, well, yeah, I guess I don't know. I did, on the first one, I really, as a board, for me, I actually think the policy reads well, because it says the board may refuse to hear or delay hearing an agenda item if, and we've heard it 3 months in a row. So to me, what that's saying is that we should have the power in that, because if nothing's changed, if it's not something else that needs to be dealt with, then, we need to make sure we're efficient with our time and handling that properly. And that's how I read that, because it's not saying we have to refuse it. It's not saying we're automatically gonna refuse it, but it does say we control the right not to hear it. And I think that's important, that we do have to have that control as the board, when it's a situation that isn't necessary.
I agree with you. I think that should be a decision. If it's been heard 3 times,
It just says
Why do we
it's
need-
been heard once in the previous 3 months, and that's
Right.
like,
Sorry, anyways,
but it doesn't say it's like a rule, you cannot speak. It's just board's up to the board's discretion.
because if there's nothing's changed on it, sometimes here, it can be counterproductive, just continuing to, like, that word's needed, that horse, if there's nothing new on that. But that's just how I read it.
So that's one way to go. So
Yeah.
you have, it says may, so it protects us if it's under the job, but then we still can overrule it.
yeah, There are other places where it says the board doesn't have to hear it, so I wasn't thinking about that as a name, but I know
So-
what you meant.
So if you're.
So just, yeah, so just to clarify, we're good with the language as that section states. I also want to point out under, where it says under agenda items, the second paragraph, where it talks about, must first meet with the superintendent or designee to attempt to resolve the issue unless, that is the paragraph that we're talking about adding in the superintendent and board president or designee in both cases, if they're not available. So that's what we're adding in.
That was one of the things I had marked, that was the board president thing. Oh, okay, so we go to the next.
You say all of that,
No, but that's.
Oh, there's more on that.
Sorry.
On that policy.
Yep. Number 4, the board president will make the decision on whether to delay or refuse an agenda item, and will, let me look at my notes. Oh, never mind, that's fine. Number 8, I was gonna recommend that we strike that one. It says, only residents who have met with or requested to meet with the superintendent or designee will be allowed to speak during this time.
That's the state law, I believe.
I don't think that's in the statute.
It will take effect, is my
It's not right now,
understanding.
but it will take effect. It has to meet with the superintendent or designee first. Oh, I didn't print that.
Well, I think about it from
that
an
issue in the law.
I think about it from an efficiency stance too. I mean, don't we want to try to resolve their issues, so shouldn't we be able to have the information if that's possible?
It's true.
That's how I read that.
So having, yeah.
I know people who tried to get in touch with the superintendent and maybe in some other district or something in the past and hasn't worked.
Well, if it doesn't, now they can go to the designee, which would be the board president, right?
It would be with both, yes.
Yeah, it's not both, one or the other.
It also states in this policy that if the individual has not had the meeting 20 days, within 20 days, then at the next board meeting, they would be automatically added.
Yeah, makes sense. That kind of covers that.
Yes.
Gives clarity.
Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah, that's true, I just think, why does that person have to wait a whole month, but that's fine. Number 9,
Question on
it
that.
says,
I'm sorry, with it stating that, so is that, and maybe it's something, I may be chasing a rabbit, I'm so sorry guys, but I just think about that, that's very forgiving, because let's say I want, someone wants to have a meeting, wants to talk about something, and opportunities are given to them, but their schedule, the citizen doesn't, their schedule doesn't allow them to meet that.
Yeah, I think the policy though is working as if they were, if a meeting was refused or if they get the opportunity to be heard, not necessarily scheduled conference.
Okay, yeah, sorry, just kind of.
The way that the language is written, yeah.
Sorry,
Is
not,
addressing.
that's very not important, just kind of.
Now, it does state in the, how you make that official request. So, I mean, so there has to be dated, so
Yeah.
you do need to reply in time.
Right.
So, anyway.
okay, number 9, if more than one resident, this is what's proposed, if more than one resident seeks to speak on the same item at the same meeting, the board president it says there, but it should say, because it's at his or her discretion will determine the total time that people devoted to the item and how the time will be shared between the residents. The board president will encourage residents to appoint a spokesperson or to communicate their concern through other means. If the board must limit the number of speakers, it will assign priority based on what the votes are received. We already have a policy that we give each person a set amount of time. So it seems like if it's a big enough issue that there are several people who will sign up to speak, then it seems only fair to me that they should get that same amount of time that everyone else would get if there's only one person for each topic. I don't think we should try to say, well, totally you have 10 minutes for this subject, so you 10 people have to divide up your time or appoint a spokesperson. It's going to cost us 3 minutes, 5 minutes. If we want the community to believe that we want to hear from them, then we need to make it seem like we want to hear from them.
Clear, it says when you're at the discretion, we have the option.
right now we have a great board president, but when you set policy, that's something that you're setting and you have to think about, well, what if somebody that we didn't like was the board president? How would that policy work? In order to figure out if it's truly a good policy to think about in a good case and a bad case. It says the board president will encourage residents to appoint a spokesperson, and the board president at their discretion will determine the total time to be voted. I think we should leave that out. They each get their 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever time we set.
I'll give just thinking through that from why, I'm big on, sometimes what a policy says is what it says, but big on the why you would have this. So, let's talk about why this makes sense.
I like hearing that context.
Yeah, so, and because I don't know that I disagree with you, but I also know why this is. So let's say, for example, it is an issue that maybe it's not 100%, there's tons of people that want to speak on it, but it becomes a spread like wildfire, and there's a group that comes in and there are 30 of them that want to speak because it's become, and again, that may be a big enough issue that's it, but instead of allowing us to handle the situation and fine tune it so we can really get to work as the board, we sit here and we have 30 people spending their 30 minutes, which is now 90 minutes. And I know I'm going the exact extreme of you, but I think this is, yeah, I do, and I just think that's why I do think we have to have some things that are some gray area where we have control again of the board. And, because anyways, if that makes sense. I don't know, I don't want to be contrarian necessarily level minded. That's a perspective I have.
That's good, and I wasn't counting that because there's another spot where it says, if there are very many, the board can limit how many people allowed to speak at this meeting and good context. So I didn't know why it had to be here, but we're like, well, if you all have the same subject, you lose your time. That just sounds like a turn off.
I think the way it's written, there are both of those, because it's at the discretion, but it also protects if you're in a situation like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to get it, it's just gives you an out. Easy. You can understand or either believe 50. I mean, and it's possible. That's why it gives you that out to talk to the whole group. But I don't think that you would utilize that ever, and that would be our norm to never utilize that unless it was that excessive. That's why the policy is written to protect from that, would be my opinion.
Okay, I'll give on that, but I don't agree, because there are other places where there are ways to protect from it. And honestly, I mean, look at the roaring crowd that signed up to speak tonight, and how many months in a row that happens that way. So honestly, if there really is a meeting where there are 30 people who cared enough to come and say something, then we ought to hear them, or have another meeting and hear them later,
But you think about even the last 9 months I've been attending, that is the smallest group we've ever had.
That's staying for the business. That's that we're hearing recognition.
But if they were approved, I mean, they would, or.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That, yeah.
Usually nobody signs up to speak ahead of time. So if they didn't care enough to come and speak, then we have to.
But hopefully once that message gets out there, it will be,
Right.
and that's why it's written. In my mind, policy is written to protect you from those situations. It's just there as if this situation would happen. That's why it's written.
I don't necessarily agree, but I'll get on that, that's fine. So that was all the stuff I had on BDDH one.
Do we want to vote on that now?
Yeah, so as it sits right now, the only recommended change that is on the table, if I understand correctly, is adding the superintendent, or I'm sorry, the board president or designate. Otherwise, the policy is approved as presented.
Are we changing number 9? We're changing that word there because of her.
I actually think when I was looking at some of the others, they specifically changed it to her to there, and I assume that has to do with quality or something, because that was done, that was a change, that just because I caught that change.
Those are the ones I wrote down.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I saw that, I assume there's a purpose, because I'd seen that some places, I don't know that going back be changed, that makes sense, but that, I don't know, but there may be more to that than maybe other.
So I think that if that is the purpose, it's grammatically correct to say his or her if you're talking about one person, the board president at his or her discretion. But if there's a purpose to try to be more some other purpose, then maybe our board needs, not maybe, but our board definitely needs to talk about whether that fits what Ozark wants to support and promote in our board policy.
We could call Susan or to ask about the intent, or we could change it, or whatever. I would recommend to change it because
I don't think it's something that Ozark School Board should support
no
putting
law.
into our policy and gender inclusive board.
Correct. Most migrants on that. Should be.
I do think his or her is grammatically correct.
Oh, yeah. With that change, as well as the superintendent and board members designee.
Is it and or just
And.
Okay, so the superintendent and board president or designee?
Yeah, and.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, the intent is to have it this weekend for present.
And so we would just need a motion to approve that as presented with the changes, proposed changes. Okay, motion by Mark. Okay, second by Amber, and all in favor? Aye. And that was unanimous, but Patty had to leave, so just, yeah, it was unanimous, but we still have our. Yeah.
Here, the others will be faster.
Ashley, the next policy?
Is, the BDDF 1.
Oh, what about Casey?
Oh, I was just sorry, Melissa. And we can talk about Casey.
No, that's not.
I just wanted to make sure we keep you straight, so
Yes.
you go in the order that you want to go.
I've been checking them off as we go.
So we just want to make sure we have it right. So we are doing B, which one was it? B?
BDDF 1.
BDDF 1.
BDDF 1.
I mean, that,
This is the second paragraph. The first sentence is stricken. That maybe some context will help me understand why, but I think we should keep it. It says, any member upon request may submit a written explanation of the tone or vote that will be attached to the minutes or stored with the minutes. I think that's normal procedure for just about everywhere. I'm not sure why we would take that out.
Well, they're changing it because they're saying members may change.
That's the next sentence, the next subject.
Because then they're saying votes cannot be changed after the result of the vote.
But the first one just talks about adding on an explanation for your vote. The first sentence, upon request may submit. I kind of think we should keep that because most boards have that. If you vote on something, then you want to have something added to the minutes explaining it, you can.
What would be the harm in leaving that? I don't think there is.
I don't probably.
I don't have a problem leaving that either. Because that's just gonna be, if that member wants to. But
Okay, what's next?
Can I just?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's it.
we need to,
Oh, that was the last one on this one.
Gotcha.
So then we can vote on it.
so can we identify the sentence exactly so Ashley knows?
Right, the first sentence in the second paragraph, any member upon request.
And
So who's doing the requesting?
Board members request. Board members. Like if
Yeah, just wanna make
I'd
sure.
be like, I voted to do this, and want it attached.
Attached to it. Yeah.
And if we do have questions, we can call MSBA to ask
I don't
them.
think that changes
Why?
anything. Now that I'm reading it, I don't think that changes anything for the rest of the policy. It's just giving them explanation.
I think they just took it out for some reason. It's kind of interesting now that.
Good. I think it probably goes back to, it doesn't need to be said. Any board member can supply that if they choose to do so. So I think, so they probably are just trying to thin the policy.
That would make, that actually.
That,
But there's no problem leaving, it's our policy.
That's one sentence, and if it, I could put that.
Okay, is it,
Make a motion to approve BDDF with the change to add it back in.
motion by Mark,
I'll second.
second by Guy, all in favor? Aye, and that was unanimous, thank you. And next,
You're ready, Ashley?
Let Ashley catch up here. It's working, so thank you for doing that.
Okay, you know, we have the BDDB for the agendas, or did we talk about that one yet? -2.
The first question on here, first thought, kind of goes along with what we talked about on the first one. In the second paragraph down, it starts out, any board member may request that items be placed on the agenda under the board president, first sentence, second sentence, and the third sentence. The agenda items will be included on a tentative agenda unless the board recently discussed the same issue. The board president decides they should be reserved for a future meeting, board members otherwise agree. That doesn't really leave it up to discretion. That means if we've already talked about it recently, we're not going to talk about it again, but what if there are new developments? Like, maybe that's one of those strengths, right? Those input context, we've got strength from the now, thing that it really bothers me that we're like shutting some things out. No, we already talked about it. That doesn't take into account there might be something new that needs to be discussed again. And this one really says it won't be included. It doesn't leave any room for at the discretion of the board. Anything like that. So I would move to either strike that little phrase, unless the board recently discussed the same issue, or if you want to put something in to make it more at the discretion of the president, I would be okay with that. I would rather just strike the little phrase that start with unless the board recently discussed the same issue.
You want to take out, unless the board recently discussed the same issue, but we need, unless the board president decides that they should be reserved for a future meeting, or the member agrees otherwise. You want to take out, unless the board recently discussed out here.
So you think?
I mean, you're just, because if we get to the meeting and it's on there again and there's nothing new, we're just gonna say what we want.
Right. Okay, any other comments? Any other thoughts on that?
So did I clarify the language is being removed?
Yes, please. Yes.
But I mean, I wanted stated what we're removing.
I'm sorry. So she just wants it taken out unless the board recently discussed the same issue. Just that portion.
I guess maybe.
So it'll read the agenda items will be included on the tentative agenda.
And then it'll say unless, and then you jump.
Unless the board president decides. Got it. Okay, Ashley, you got it?
Okay, I'm so sorry. Take out unless the board,
No, I should have said unless
okay,
the board recently discussed the same issue. You got that.
After unless to the comma.
recently.
She has to write it down. The board recently discussed the same issue.
So this is what we need to, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what, now I'm gonna come over.
Is there maybe more on this?
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
On the same one?
Let me look at this back. Last. No, that's all right.
So that is the motion.
Okay, that was the, so that was the motion from Christina, the language, and second by Mark, and all in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it was unanimous, thank you. Next.
Next is DB.
Thank you.
DV,
which is the annual budget.
yeah, DV. So there's only one on this one. At the bottom of this section, the first section, budget planning and adoption, the last sentence down there is struck. It says the board will conduct at least one public hearing regarding the proposed budget and taxation rate. That last sentence in that last paragraph in the first section. I think we should keep that. The board will conduct at least one public hearing regarding the proposed budget and taxation rate. That's been a good thing for our district.
I think we're required by another policy, and maybe, DJDH. We are required to do it, so it's a redundant statement, so I think
so
that's
that's
why they're taking it out. That's why we have to set the tax rate hearing in August.
Right, that's what I
So,
thought. I was like,
Yes,
why are they
so I
taking
think
this
it's
out?
just, it was probably mentioned here. Sometimes they combine policies or split policies, and then things hang around when they review it, and then things get struck, but we are required by law to have that hearing.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's happening. Okay, so that was the only thing that.
I think so should be approved.
Okay, as is, motion by Amber, second by Guy.
We're jumping ahead, we're jumping ahead.
Motion, yeah, motion was by Amber and second by Guy, thank you. It was unanimous, yes.
Next is JFGA. Sorry, now I'm just writing it down in the order I had, or saying in the order I had written it down.
Oh, good, okay.
No, I want you to be able to keep track.
Yeah, going in order, yeah.
You're the one who needs to know the most.
Yes.
Okay, this only has one thing on it on the back, and it's the same topic of using the word there instead of his or her. It's, on the back, there are 4 enumerated items, and the second one says, they're talking about the principal or designee must take the following steps, and number 2 is verify to the best of, it should be his or her ability, because we're talking about the principal, the singular person, so his or her should be singular. Okay, same with.
I agree, that's grammatically correct, leave it as
And that's the only change on that was the only thing. So, motion by Christina?
Oh, yes, I move that we accept that as an amendment, yes.
Is there, I'm only seeing one place, is that correct?
Yeah.
There's only one spot, okay, that's item 2,
Yes.
under removal of students, okay? I just want to make sure we're right.
And we just need a second. Second. All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you.
JHDF.
There you go.
We're going for the blackout.
Yes.
This one also had only one, and it's on the second page, under the section. Oh, it's actually right above the section students attending virtually, right above there, item number 2. Okay. If the student has been located, the CRT member and building administrator or designee will, based on, that should be his or her also.
Second one.
Number 2 is right above student attending virtually near the bottom of the section page.
Number.
Number 2.
Their training.
Student timing. I found it.
The CRT member or the building administrator or designee. Oh, I guess if you say and, then it needs to be there. You guys, I'm so sorry. You're right, that one should be there because it hasn't.
It is.
I was reading with more of it in there. It should be in there, but, so I don't have any, changes. So I was supposed to accept it.
Okay, motion to, yes, motion by Christina to accept that policy as presented. And second by Mark, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, unanimous.
let's go to that one, DJFA.
This one also only has one on the very last page under conflict of interest. One thing that I noticed, you guys might have some cases, it's not too, just something that I noticed. On number one, on the very last page under conflict of interest, number one, the first couple of sentences are struck, and then it starts board members, employees, and agents who not participate in selection, award, administration, of contracts, or by federal award, if he or she has a real apparent or potential conflict of interest. But, oh, so that one doesn't mean.
That's correct too.
Sorry.
Because they're talking about multiple.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so I move we accept that one, okay?
Motion by Christina to accept that.
You see in red, all of the green is what is added, so they have expanded that concept in what you just read. So actually, all of the green is addressing that, so they're taking out all the red, adding the green in because they felt it needed to be expanded. So I think that is, in fact, what the whole policy is trying to do. Before, the policy was just those 4 paragraphs, before.
Now they're gonna add a lot more.
Yes, now that, because they're saying you have to meet 3 of the 4, you have to, so they're being far more directive.
And I think that the red actually is more limited.
I'm not saying to replace anything, but I'm just saying, even though this is a great little summary, but I'm not hung up on it, if you guys don't want to leave it in there, but I think it's a perfect summary statement for the whole thing.
I read this one, I didn't have any issue, because I felt like it was actually making it better.
Okay.
Because I thought it had all the things was making it happen. I mean, it's very specific in here on how to increase participation.
Yeah. If you guys don't want to keep that, that's fine, yeah, I won't argue, I think it's good.
I don't think it's bad, I just think it's redundant.
Okay, and one last thing, and this isn't about the policy, but just about something in the explanation, so the district must seek community input. You complete this plan prior to July 1st, 2023. So, have we sought community input already? I know I'm new, maybe I should.
You just have to complete the plan to get community input. If you're developing the plan for community input, not that you have to get community input by July 1st.
District must seek community input and complete the plan prior to July 1st. Am I just misunderstanding that?
So that comes from which bill is that from?
I think it went last year.
So I would mind calling Jamie tonight and asking him exactly what that means, and we discussed this a few days ago, and some of these things will be changing, but we are constantly seeking community input. We've had several surveys go out to parents recently. I mean, there's things we've done to.
And we're moving forward, doing the 4 townhall meetings too.
Yes.
So we do have a plan anyway.
We do have a plan, a little bit of a plan. We haven't sought community input on engagement. To create an engagement plan, it says, say, this is up before.
So what do you want?
I mean, I think, I kind of feel it's kind of it's a vague specific statement, and it's got the, I can't cut it both ways, but I do think for us to really complete it, there's not much we can. I think we're taking the steps to have it implemented in the proper timeline. It's how I read it.
I would say the survey that did go out to parents in December did discuss engagement And I think there would be information that could be gleaned. Now, I don't think that that is a perfect fit in what we're talking, I think we're talking about doing something more robust, obviously. But as far as meeting the policy, there would be information that we could go and extract from that survey that we took.
I reported on board twice.
Yes,
January.
yes. Now, I'm just saying, it wasn't specific to policy KC is what I'm saying. I don't wanna feel like I'm trying to be misleading here, but I'm saying we did have conversations about engagement and we did present that information to the board. So I think there would, could you say, did you do that before July 1? Yes. Are we doing more? Absolutely.
I thought we recently had an open forum and a current board member meet and greet open forum recently, and the PTA general meeting recently, we've done.
So I think there, like I said, I think there's opportunities to say that, when I initially read that, I was thinking we had to have the plan developed in place by July 1. Either way, I think we can click off both of those, that we have done that. But I think, the whole goal here is to reach out to our community and to get more information. So as I discussed in our work session, policy KC is one that we're gonna have to spend some time working on.
I like this policy. I like it too, I just want to make sure that it says we're supposed to seek community input on it. So I want to make sure we.
Well, not much that we do now.
Exactly.
So maybe we'll say we're gonna seek community. Yes.
I think they did though, I think maybe not say the next one, but they did, I think they did or something.
Right, but
We
there's
want
not
to
quite this
continue to build
policy,
upon
I'll
it.
say, yeah.
We want to continue to build on it, and I think the policy says that too.
Okay, so those are my own two. For KC, so we are approving that as presented, that policy? Yes. Okay. Motion by Mark. Second by Guy. All in favor? Aye. And that was unanimous. Thank you. And then
Next one.
Oh, I is the last one.
Miscellaneous too. Great. The first paragraph, there's some stuff stricken from red that I liked. The Board of Education, and they recommend striking this, but I'm proposing talking about keeping it. The Board of Education recognizes that curriculum development provides one of the most effective means of improving the quality of instructional programs and must be adjusted to meet the needs of the students as well as the expectations of the community. I like that. And then we just put a comment, and directs the instructional, like they have in green, and directs the instructional staff to implement grading of all instructional courses. I think that makes a statement, what we think about curriculum, and it's important to have our philosophical idea down, also what we think about curriculum, important. Not just, oh, we're gonna have somebody else figure it out, but we wanna say we recognize it's why.
If you keep that, I think you have to break it into two sentences, otherwise it's
I do want to make mention in the explanation, it is talking about those changes or making sure that we do meet the guidelines from Senate Bill 681. So I don't know if they're just streamlining and then stating what they needed to in regard to curriculum.
I think the green is what you're saying they have
Or
to
just
say.
streamline.
So you have to leave that sentence. I
Yes.
think in red, you like what it says, but I think both of them stay and not negate the other.
Right.
I'm fine with it. I'm good, and it's our last one.
And it's our next to last one.
Oh, you have another one on this?
Okay, but this is a quick one. So how about in the second paragraph underneath curriculum development and review? The district will provide resources and administrative support. That's how that paragraph starts. Then in the end of the second sentence, in red, they are striking based on actual student needs and indications of student mastery. I think we should keep that about mastery because that's one of the main things, that the students are mastering content. The district will devise a systematic plan to regularly review each curricular area based on, and I don't care if we keep the other ones, I think they'd be good, but definitely we should keep all the student mastery on the district's assessments, and available data.
I think the redundancy there is the district assessment and other data is mastery. So that's, I think the reason they cross it out is because it's redundant, and you can do whatever you want, you can keep it, but the reason they cut it out was just because it's redundant.
It's not, I don't even think it's redundant, it's defining what
What's
mastery, what you're basing mastery off of.
You have your proficiency scales and other things to determine assessments. There is nothing written here that says what is student mastery, that's open to interpretation. So I would agree with Dr. Chesick there, that that's talking about assessment being more specific than just mastery.
But I do think the legal version, I think that you can make, on that first part, just make it into 2 sentences.
The first bit up top.
Yeah, and then this
Is
one.
it pronoun
The first one, she wants to change this
or,
up.
oh, the first, okay,
To leave that red stuff in there.
But you're gonna have to make it
2 sentences.
Yeah, it's 2 sentences.
No run on.
I think, and to meet the standard of that Senate, I think you're actually gonna have to.
Leave the green part.
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely say, I wasn't saying anything about that.
You need to do community and direct.
That's what I thought.
That's a really long sentence, but you could, or you could put community period, the board directs.
I bet you.
I wonder if you
Because
should,
sometimes I think you have, there's certain things I'm saying in a certain case sometimes.
yeah, there's part of the wonders that it shouldn't read the Board of Education directs, you know, that
And
is.
then they
And
recognize,
then they recognize that, you know,
because they recognize the curve, yeah,
yeah,
So flip flop it.
yeah.
yeah. That way we're not changing their
You
potential.
can even start the
The board-
first sentence
the board
with,
of direct-
because the Board of Education direct recognizes,
But that
then
whole
they,
thing,
I think
the
you,
full sentence in that they need, the Board of
Yeah.
Education directs the education, the instructional staff to implement a curriculum for all instructional courses because they recognize that.
because it recognizes.
You put a paragraph, but they recognize the curriculum development.
Is it recognizes or recognizes?
Board of Education, it would be. Gosh, this is really testing.
I think it's, yes, so the board recognizes,
I
yes.
hope that was definitely.
White or green period, then the
That
board.
is-
There we got a motion.
Do we have it?
Second by Amber, so that was a.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's
Who was the
okay, I know,
first?
yeah, it's no problem.
Who-
Mark was
who-
the first.
Mark,
Yeah.
second by Amber.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
And it was unanimous. Yay, thank you for making me home see thank you. Yes.
I would make mention to the board, we will be reviewing the packet in June as the second read, so these conversations would be great before approval, so we could get those actually in prior. We didn't have an opportunity with this packet, but that would be a great time to do it in June for the second one. And it would give us more time to make adjustments, and it wouldn't be, we would just agree to the language, then we can make the change, then you're actually coming back in the third review with actually seeing the language.
Good. Are those on our agenda? I remember last month I tried to open the packet and I couldn't.
Which is
Most
why
of
we-
them-
Yeah,
that's
that
why
was
it's
a-
here.
Yeah,
Apologize for that, that was a assembly glitch we had to work through.
yeah, yeah.
Ashley fixed it, she's actually just putting them in as PDFs now,
She's awesome.
Yeah. so,
Okay.
that was just easier
Thank you,
than
Ashley.
following the link.
yes, oh, no.
No, we're done.
No, we didn't.
Adjourn.
No, we're just gonna adjourn.
I'm okay.
Mark.
Okay. Mark, second by Amber. And all of you. Thank you.
And that one was unanimous.
Thank you. And yeah, the important business too is yes. That's good. And we are, we're good. Yeah. Have a good night, everybody.
You've got those copies.
Good night.